views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, where real men don't play. Today's show is about shelter. You know, there's certain things in this life that you cannot do without food, water, clothing, and shelter. In the city of Los Angeles, where we're sitting right now on Crenshaw Boulevard, one of the most vexing and frustrating problems that we deal with is the burgeoning homeless population. And before we go any further, I want to introduce my guest for today in studio, a brother by the name of Ted Hayes. Ted, welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner.
Bobby, thank you very much, man. I'm honored to be here, dude. I didn't know you did all this.
Well, every chance I get, man, thanks to Sister Porter, this is back there behind the board. I try to present models of possibility and best practice.
Well, it looks good. She's done a wonderful job.
We have on the phone someone who's not a stranger to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner and definitely not a stranger to me because we share a bloodline together. My cousin, Frank Wilson, one of the most preeminent realtors in the city of Los Angeles. Frank?
Good evening, Bobby.
Man, welcome back home, man. How you doing?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm always pleased to be a part of Positive Energy.
Well, the reason I called Frank earlier today, I was with another associate of mine, and he had told me about a commercial property here in the Leimert Park area that he was interested in purchasing. So I called Frank, and they talked for a few minutes, and Frank shared with him some of the intricacies of this particular transaction. And it inspired me knowing that you were going to be in the studio because he touched on something and he used a couple of phrases that I want him to illuminate on today that are important for all of us, not just in the city of Los Angeles, but anywhere there's a congregation of folks living close together with high density, need to be aware of two phrases that Frank showed with me. The first one is borderline security. And here's a clue. We're not talking about the wall. We're talking about borderline security. So if you would kind of illuminate what that phrase means in the construct of a conversation about, why there's so many people living in the streets and people that are not in the streets could be headed for the Inland Empire with a quickness based on the significance of that phrase, borderline security, Frank.
Yeah, Bobby, that phrase, borderline security, is something that if I had to think of a word, I would use two words, and that would be esoteric and bias, which is a hidden agenda that what they tend to do is they create a value so that different class of people, if you will, cannot come across that border. And so what you're looking at now is like this new world order, which is gentrification. Now, the word gentrification, if you want to and dissect it, it could just mean genes. But what they're really doing is they coming in, and it's sort of like an icon word to say, hey, look over here where they're sleeping. Let's go over here, and let's just recreate this whole city and create another border, so that they can no longer come back and make their own acquisitions. So, for an example, if I qualified for a house 10 years ago at $500,000 and my income status hasn't changed, that means that if this same house is worth $1.1 million, I can't even move. And if I move, where am I headed?
You said something I want to drill down on for a moment, and that is something that I hear in the larger community being discussed with other frustrations, and that is wage stagnation. A lot of people across this country are stuck, not to the extent that we are in L.A., due to the fact that you may have an appreciating asset in your home, but your wages didn't increase. So kind of break down the implications of that, Frank, in terms of how that limits your possibilities.
Well, what it does is it's just really simple. It just prevents me from selling property to those who just don't qualify. So you're right, they are stagnant. But in any case, you can circumvent that if the unity and understanding is being delivered, because there are programs out there. Let me just give you an example. Let's just say for the Federal Housing Administration. And if you think of other nationalities who came here and possessed over 70% of all real property, they was using those type of programs. 1% down. The seller could pay all your closing costs. The uncle could give you a gift. The seller could give back the gift to the uncle. So that person literally got into that house with zero down and walked away with a check to pay his first 3 mortgages. You see, but the thing is, we only stagnated because realtors, per se, or loan institutions who are putting this money out are pretty much confidential, or they're hovering this information so that it's too late, if you will. Because, and today, I listed a property in Linwood for $500,000.
In Linwood?
Wow. In Linwood.
Now hold on. I want people that don't live in the greater Los Angeles area to know what Linwood is proportionate to Los Angeles as it relates to real estate prices. That's near Compton. That's next door to Compton, right?
It's adjacent, right next door.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying there's a house listed in Linwood for $500,000.
Exactly. Now, that's 1,800 square feet. They're going to buy that house because the marketplace over there understands with just $5,000.
What do you mean $5,000?
That's going to be their down payment to get that property, and the closing costs, and all of that are going to be subsidized by the state and the seller. And you see, and this is one of the main reasons that the inner city is losing properties, is because they are not abreast to what's going on, and they don't want to come out and lie, so they will be stagnated.
So you used another phrase on the phone with me today that I think people would be appreciative of understanding. It was BPO or something like that. What was that?
Well, that's a broker's price opinion, and that just pretty much lets you know what's going on in the area and on that subject property.
So that basically... Now, I'm going to let you talk. I don't know.
No, I'm going to talk now. Let me talk.
Okay, so therefore, that's pretty much what it is. It just says, I'll look at this property, I'm going to tell you my opinion of value. But what's so strange is they get these BTOs from foreigners, and in areas that's only worth, say, $400,000, they're getting $5 million.
What? How do you go from an appraised value of $400,000 or $500,000 to $5 million?
Foreign money. That's how. They have so much money here that is so confidential, and we are not privileged to knowing, because when one gets the information, he hover it, but he don't share it. I had a young lady that was 23 years old. Now, to me, this is impossible. 23 years old that paid $550,000 in cash for a property. She's not a celebrity. She's not an icon. So where did she get that kind of money at that age? Barely out of school.
Now, was this a black person?
Not at all.
I didn't think so. So, now, are these syndicates that are this just a family thing, or is it a cultural thing? How is it that these people are able to come into these communities and not just buy one property, but multiple properties?
Well, that's a good question, because it could be a multitude of many things. One, it could be some type of syndication that are promising yield spread in their country, and then bring their money here and invest it because they get a greater return, and they could get more money than they can there where they live in their own country. And for that reason, I want to back it up, and although a lot of folks are really objective to Donald Trump, but that's one of his biggest cries, is not the borders for stopping us from buying property, it's a border to stop them from coming taking our properties, taking our wealth, because they have that dual citizenship, which gives them the opportunity to come here and liquidate a property and go back there and get 10 times on the dollar. You see, and that's what his cry is. He said, you guys taking all our wealth, trillions and trillions of dollars are walking out of our country into these other countries because of the guys who have the knowledge will hover it and don't educate us. And we need enough programs out there to enable us to get this knowledge. I like the guy I talked with today. He said, well, I know that these folks can get property without a dime. That's absolutely 100% true. But you have to understand the product. And unless you talk the product, then you're considered subservient.
So you mentioned the sitting president, and his whole issue has been border security from a whole different vantage point, not just emphasizing protecting wealth by keeping people from acquiring property here. His whole thing has been we're getting the worst of the brown people, and they're bringing drugs and they're raping the women. So you were the first person to put another spin on that he hasn't taken credit for. So I want to just make sure that people understand what you mean by borderline security as opposed to the message that he has been promoting. And my man Ted's got something he wants to interject right here.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Hey, likewise.
You're very lucid in your thoughts, and you're very clear. And to add to what you just said, and I'm frankly challenging the man on it right now as we speak. Been talking to people in Congress and so forth and so on. He said something pretty much what you said. If you're going to talk about it in a city, he said this, what I heard him say. Black people, or he called us African Americans. African Americans, he said, African Americans are hurt more by illegal immigration than anybody else in the country.
Absolutely.
Bam.
Absolutely.
See, people have seen this thing coming for years, and certain people like Dr. Claude Anderson tried to warn us back in the 1970s. But people said, man, he's crazy, man. He's being prejudiced. He's being breaking the color line. No, I said, no, man, this ain't about color, it's about race. This is about economics. Straight up. And these people found a way to make economics off our back. And that's why when they come here, many of them who even come here so-called legally, they can come from China or wherever they come from, get here, they claim minority status. When they get that minority status, they go to the government and get everything that belongs to you and me and us by law.
Listen. They come in here to multiply. And a lot of people's not aware of this. They own over 70% of all real property in the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles.
Who is they?
The Hispanic marketplace. And that's why that border wall had to be built. It's not, that little undercurrent that he's speaking on, the crime and what have you, that is minute compared to the real structure that's going on that was set up by your President Clinton. They are taking this money. They beat you out of jobs. They are in top positions. Foreigners in top positions. Everybody's in top positions. Then they come up with this gentrification to run everybody other than a part of their program out.
My brother, I've been calling it for years ethno-racial cleansing. Systematic, stealth, ethno-racial cleansing, even to the point that we're about to lose our identity as a people.
That's it.
That's serious. I know people telling me, man, black folks don't watch out. There's genocide written all over the wall for them.
Mm.
Well, that's where we were in the beginning, but see, the thing is, we didn't hold on to it. We was convinced, and it's really sad that they don't hold on to roll wealth over. You get rid of it. You don't care about your daughter and your son. Get rid of it. And you see, and that's the only reason why they was able to take all of Linwood and Compton and Watts and all your inner city schools. These folks coming here and having 4 babies. Why? Because the county would pay them to have those babies. And then their husbands, which are married in Mexico, which is not recognized here, and just work off a visa and do all your mercenary work and your landscaping. You see, I'm going to tell you something, and I always screamed at one of them. When I looked to the left of me and see one drive out in a Bentley, I said to myself, Lord, I never went from selling oranges to driving.
Now,
you see, that's a conspiracy. That's what's going on here. And I'm really seriously, as a realtor, I feel real sorry for the brothers and sisters. And if the parents who got money don't support and put that money in such a way, like for an example, and then I'm going to move along. Let me say this. If I have $500,000, I would put it in the house and let my daughter live there. And I'm going to put a lien on that house for that $500,000 so that it can stay in the family. But if they're able to buy the house, you steal your money. You see, but what they want to do is say something like, oh, no, you ain't getting my money. Yeah, the bank got it.
So, Frank.
Where's the bank put out?
So, Frank, before everybody heads for suicide watch, are there any possible remedies to this fast moving train towards oblivion?
Well, yeah, get on board with them.
What do you mean by that?
Surrender.
Well, see, what you got to do is you got to, like you said, you have to surrender and play their game. But you got to understand synergy. You got to bring the people together, just like I was just speaking on. You know, if you're sitting over there with $1 million, help somebody. You be the bank, finance it, get them in there with leverage. If you're going to give 1% in the bank, 2%, they're going to give you 4 or 5%, 6%. Let this man live. Help each other. You see, do what they're doing to build. And I ain't trying to put down no church. Stop giving all your money to the church and don't give it back to you.
Well,
they giving houses away, land away. Yes. And then they got kids, and how you going to have kids and give 3 houses to the church over your kids? That man is not no deity up on that stage.
Teach, my brother. Teach. Sound like John the Baptist out there, man. Watch out now.
So,
but I'm just saying, you know, and I'm all about it. But see, if you are taught wrong, then there is no recovery because you wouldn't even know how to jump on the train.
Speaking of trains, by the time they complete the train down the middle of this Crenshaw corridor, it's going to pretty much be a wrap. Are there any short-term goals that we could begin to establish to at least stop the bleeding? And you just mentioned one thing, we know, think differently than we already do. And I hate to use this word because we haven't even begun to, I think, embrace it yet, and that's unify. But what can motivate us to just, stop the bleeding and then be able to make some assessments?
Well, first you got to recognize that who you are as a person, as a black person in America. And then once you couple that, then what you could do is start, and it's got to be imperative though, start, create the unity of investments to whereas we could start building and helping and loaning and creating financing programs to help folks get in. See, it's not complicated. It's selfishness that prevents it. And I'm not like, I sit back and watch Magic and all these guys open all these folks with all this money. You see, they can be a bank. They can leverage out. They can come up with programs. You see, they don't have to just go buy Starbucks and say, look at me. And see, that's the whole problem. They all want to get the money and say, look at me. And then the capitalist system make you better than everybody else. I never will forget when I went to real estate school, and the Jewish guy told me, he said, well, you're really good. And when I was asking, you taught this class, but you got one problem in your life. He said, what? I said, what is that? He said, your peoples are jealous. every minute one Michael Jackson. We make many. But so, you know, and all I'm saying is, stop talking about the history of where we came from. We already set with that. Let's start making a change by coming together and unifying with money. Put it together so that we can. Because, you know, I'm going to tell you something. If you took 100 people and they all saved $1,000 each, next year, you building something.
Oh, wow. Well, you know, that is a very viable alternative to what we're doing right now, and that is, like you say, cutting each other's throat over nickels and dimes. And what I want to do, Frank, because this is going to be a recurring theme, because I have no other choice, because every time I move around the community that I live in, and then and Frank lives in Inglewood, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's a beautiful, it's more than a home, it's an adventure, okay?
Right, okay.
And the properties are skyrocketing in Inglewood, you know, and if we don't begin to consolidate capital with expertise, this is going to be a very difficult place to stay in. Very difficult.
Very true.
So, Frank, I'm going to be getting back in touch with you soon, man, as we begin to look at some of the things that we're getting ready to get into with Ted here in a moment about how so many people have found themselves living in the streets. So, man, I want to thank you. And before you go, man, can you give people some contact information in the event that they want more of your knowledge about real estate, and if they have property they're trying to keep, or if, unfortunately, they have to sell? Give them a number that they can reach you at, Frank.
Well, yeah, you can reach me at 310-466-8265.
One more time.
Once again, 310-466-8264.
Now, is your motto still, when you're ready to sell, if you call Frank Wilson, you can do what?
Pack with me and start moving. No, I take that back. I'm sorry. List with me and start packing.
Start packing. Okay, man.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's cold.
No, he's all about that. We've done a couple of deals together, man, and it was good to get more than a handshake from a brother. You know, he put an envelope in my hand, man, because I turned him on to someone who used his expertise and his services, and we all came out, you know, feeling a lot better about it.
That's how you do it.
So, Frank, man, I'm going to be getting back to you and get you back over here in the studio in the very near future, man. Thanks for stopping by Uncle Bobby's Country Corner, brother.
All right, take care, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Now, before we go to break, I want to set the stage for the rest of the show. I knew of you before I actually met you when I came to Los Angeles in the 80s. You know, your face became the face and the voice of homelessness in Los Angeles. So just quickly before we go to break, a little history about who Ted Hayes is and how he became the face of homelessness here in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you. It started in 1985. The Lord told me that I should go and spend some time on the streets with homeless people, sleeping with them on sidewalks, etc., in order to understand what it was, to smell it, feel it, taste it, eyes wide open, not just fall into it, then wake up and realize, hey, man, I'm homeless, let me do something about this. No, I went in deliberately for a purpose, and to prepare for the day when I have the opportunity to speak about it, that will come from my heart and not from my head. And people listen and work. And for 8 years I was there. That's what it's about. And there's a lot of things. Yes,
8 years?
Yes, sir. Voluntarily on the sidewalks in downtown. On Skid Row.
And
it was bad then. It was bad then. We used to have then what they call cardboard condos. All these boxes look like coffins, laid them down the street. We used to talk about how the death of homeless people, man. It was all similar. You could see the stuff in our heads. And we said then to Mayor Bradley, to Richard Riordan, to Valeria Gosa, Hahn, we said then, if you do not implement what we've learned here, how to fix this by executive presidential power, what you see here right now is going to explode all over the city. And brothers and sisters, it's worse than I could have imagined myself seeing. So that's, and it's like it happened just yesterday. And I'm very hopeful now. I think that I'm pretty sure we can get our hands on this one and we could take it all the way home. That's why I'm glad that you invited me to come on and present
Some of your points of view.
Yes, sir.
Now, what were some of the things that were most challenging about willfully going into a shelterless environment for you?
I was scared, man. I ain't never been that scared in my life. I was scared. I was frightened. I used to, lay there hearing all the noise and the talks and the threats of death language I'd never heard before. And I had to be quiet and still, just listen. But it was scary. But after a while, at least what happened to me, because I didn't have any friends. We made friends there. What happens, they saw my work, what I was doing. I was cleaning up and, bringing firewood and, just minding my business and just trying to. And then eventually some of the brothers said, well, who are you? What are you doing?
Okay, hold on a second. We got a caller. Let's see, out of curiosity, who's on the line. Welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner. Who am I speaking with?
Hello, Bobby. This is Rob Mitchell from Murfreesboro.
Oh, man. This is such a joy and a blessing. Rob Mitchell is the Rutherford County tax assessor in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, my hometown. Rob, welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner and one of the shining lights in this city, Ted Hayes. Ted, say hello to a dear friend of mine in my hometown, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Rob Mitchell.
Hey, Rob.
He can't hear. He can see you. Yeah, he can see.
Hey, Rob.
So what motivated you to call today, Rob?
Oh, I was just sitting here at the house, and I logged in, and a little thing came up that Uncle Bobby's on. So I clicked over real quick, and I thought, I'm gonna try to call in.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to get in. Just a little history about Rob Mitchell and I. We met on a radio show when I was back in Murfreesboro a few years ago,
right.
And had no idea that we would become as close as we are now. I consider him a real friend.
Brother.
Okay.
Right.
And quickly, Rob, if you would, and this might inspire some collective thought in terms of addressing homelessness nationwide. You came up with a concept that you shared with me a few weeks ago, and if you could, in a couple of minutes, kind of outline the implications of that as we look at addressing homelessness.
Yeah, that's a tough word.
Yeah.
It should be tough.
From different vantage points.
Well, there's different ways to attack it. The first thing that Bobby and I were working on and talking about was tiny houses. And we've kind of progressed on now that there are ways through the tax code that you can incentivize restoration and preservation of historic communities and make them tax incented in such a way that you can afford to rent at below market rents for people that are struggling to find homes. And it also makes it profitable for the investors to come in to do it. And I think it's just a wonderful way to give people opportunities to live in a decent home. It gives investors a return on their investment, and it teaches people how to be partners in preservation so that they get beyond the stigma of being a renter that's not going to care about the place. They're actually going to care for it and take care of it.
So, Rob, man, this has been such a pleasant surprise. And what I'm going to do is arrange for a time where we can all get on the phone and you can kind of share how you have looked at this thing closely enough that you've already presented some ideas formally to Rutherford County. And keep in mind, this is one of the fastest growing counties and cities in the United States.
Congratulations.
But we got some issues.
Yeah,
though.
of course.
You know, my community has not experienced the blessings of prosperity that has engulfed much of what we call New Murfreesboro and New Rutherford County. But Rob is a straight soldier, man. He's a very compassionate person who's leading with his heart instead of his head. And I'm going to set up a conversation with you and your buddy. What's my man name down there in Murfreesboro you want me to meet?
Michael McDonald.
Michael McDonald. This is an excuse right now to have that conversation because these are four kindred spirits, you know, because I thought I was poor coming up till I heard some of Rob's stories, right? He's from West Virginia, and shoot, I was poor. He was po. P.O.
I know a little bit about West Virginia.
Yeah.
I've been out there a few times, got some dear friends there, and I learned a little bit of the history and the culture. And I've always said a long time that people in those areas in the Appalachian Mountains and so forth and so on are white folks that white folks hate more than they hate black folks. And they don't care nothing about them folks out there in West Virginia and in the mountains and so forth. They don't give a flying flip. And I've always said, man, somebody got to speak up about that issue. It's ignored. It's totally ignored. Like it don't exist.
Yeah.
Am I correct, sir? Am I being out of place here?
No, that's absolutely right. And Bobby and I were talking last week, in the observation that we came up with, you don't see rich people of color and rich people that are white or yellow or green. They get along fine. The only time you see real conflict is when you have people that are poor that are being directed to be envious of other poor people, like the other poor people are going to take what they got. And they don't have anything to have.
Teach, my brother.
Yeah. So, Rob, we got to take a short pause right now. I hope you can listen to the rest of the show, and that conversation. Sure, the conversation is going to happen, man. Thank you so much for stopping by Uncle Bobby's Country Corner.
You take care.
All right. We're going to take a short pause and be right back. All right, we are black as ever, shoe polish back, Kiwi in particular, and we sitting here, Ted Hayes and I, and just had a man call in that I asked to call in because we've all sit down and broke bread and shared visions, and there is a cross-section with our objectives. And on Sunday, Mickey Stevenson, first of all, Mickey, welcome to Uncle Bobby's Country Corner once again. How you doing? Hello, Mickey.
Yeah, Ted there with you?
Yeah, he's sitting to my left, man. Yes.
Now, that's big time.
Oh, man. And,
hey, Mickey. Bless you, sir.
And he's got a book here with him, Mickey, that it's called Give Me Shelter. Architecture Takes on the Homeless Crisis, edited by Sophia Borges and R. Scott Mitchell, foreword by Mayor Eric Garcetti. The book is not formally released yet, but he said there's a couple of places you can go and get a copy of it. And it's a substantial book, and there's some photographs of Ted in here. And if you would, Portis, if you can pull up those pictures of the homeless domes that he did. The photos on the screen right now, Mickey, reflect something you did back in what year?
93.
In 1993.
You
know.
Wow.
15 years.
Yeah. And the reason I asked Mickey to call in today is he's a man on a mission, just like you are, and
I heard something about that.
That's right. You was at the Mickey produced an event in what's known here in Los Angeles as Little Tokyo. And when Mickey was on my show a couple of weeks ago, he talked about the Azusa Street revival.
Yeah.
And the intersection in terms of my show today about homelessness is people who understand it and people who are motivated to eradicate it. And I'm sitting here in studio with one person and on the phone with the other. So, Mickey, what is it about the Azusa revival and your aspirations to produce not only a musical about the significance and the historical nature of the intersection between the Japanese community and the black population back in 1906, and the present problem we're having with homelessness?
Well, what has been such an amazing thing to me is that with the Holy Spirit coming in 1906 and making such a miraculous visual of him, of the Holy Spirit, and the people around him, and speaking in tongues and being healed, and did this incredible movement. It's almost, and of course, that whole religious feeling caught on and swept through the Pentecostals from a few hundred people to 600 million people is phenomenal. It reminds me, and I had a rude awakening this morning through the Holy Spirit, it reminds me of Moses bringing the Jews out of Egypt through the Holy Spirit of God. He was the leader to make that happen. How this guy, William Seymour Black, but the Holy Spirit came down on that, made this Pentecostal religion grow to 600 million people. Now that is a amazing combination.
Yep.
Chosen by the same God
Yep.
at different times. Now, for that to happen, we talk of Moses all the time. Okay? And the Jews went from all over the country through Hitler and all that madness into Israel and took a whole land. Now, when this miraculous thing happened here, downtown, and all of a sudden it's over, instead of it being a wonderful place for prayer and things happening and a miraculous miracle for us in our time, we got homeless people. That is unbelievable.
That's right.
And that is, I mean, we all responsible for it.
Yes, sir.
And that really bothers me. But the bottom line is, we're here to do something about it.
That's right.
Now.
Well, on that note right there, Mickey, I want to share with the listening audience the miracle of Ted Hayes in that same sense of, making an indentation back in 1993. And I showed a picture a minute ago of the domes that he was instrumental in developing. And here we are in 2018, and these young people at the various universities and think tanks have come up with this blueprint, according to them, to deal with the homeless crisis. So, Ted, if you would, take us back to 1993 and the evolution of the Dome Village.
And a lot of those college students were not born or little teeny kids at the time that this was happening. Well, the idea was basically to create a microcosm of a future community, like a complete township. Dome Village was an abbreviation of all kind of aspects of that community. It wasn't not just to end homelessness per se, but it's to use homelessness to address the problems within our world that creates and maintains homelessness. So we're thinking globally, acting locally, and that's what the Dome Village was, our local expression of a global thing that needs to take.
And those structures existed for 14 years?
We were there for 13 years.
Years?
From November 1993, the same year, ran for mayor. There was 24 of us running at the time. This was after Tom Bradley. And that was November 3rd, 1993. And then it ended in November 2007, after being there for 13. What people would consider, and HUD would consider, who funded it mostly, and the city of L.A., who permitted it mostly, they considered a pretty successful project. It's an innovation that some people said has never happened in the history of the United States. And Lord Cook, the chairman and president of ARCO, said, if it's not in the history of the United States, it's the best thing in America in 50 years to address homelessness.
Oh, man, that's incredible.
So you say here, there's a quote in this book about Ted, homeless are more affected by the environment than anyone. What do you mean by that?
Where that came from was the malathion spraying. When that happened, when this whole city been to fight the fruit flies. And we were saying that how could you do this without considering the people who are sleeping out here in the streets? You're telling the people take your animals in, take your lawn furniture in, so it doesn't, and you're saying it's not harmful. And so we fought that, and I've been very cognizant of the environment globally because of the way it affects people who get no protection from it. However, I do believe, though, that if we conscientiously focus on addressing the situation properly in the right attitude, that we will discover ways in which we can fix some of these environmental issues, because I think there's knowledge that's been hidden from us because we are not expressing real concern for humanity. That's why we call our movement New Frontier 2, Operation Humanity.
Now, Mickey, what we had talked about before you were able to come on the show is models of possibility and best practices. You're dealing with an enormous population of people who have unlimited resources. They just haven't really tapped into the necessity of really focusing on what the church is and like-minded individuals could do to address this problem. One of the things that you and I both know from having spent time with Ted is that he's come up with some ideas in addition to having set a foundation back in the 90s to deal with these problems that have changed tremendously since then. For example, the homeless, the domes we can't construct those downtown anymore because that property has skyrocketed in value, and it's the same in many of the urban centers around the city of L.A. So, Ted, where are some of the places you envision being able to place people where they can thrive and prosper despite not having a lot of material resources?
You know, I have to be careful here because I am not, as far as my part in this movement, I'm not looking to create more programs. I'm looking to get to the President of the United States of America to get executive authority and power on the line of the Marshall Plan post-World War II. Got to have a kind of zeal to it to fix this. And they did that in 10 to 20 years. All those millions of homeless people are up and running over there. Now it's time that this country faces this reality, and we have something, a basic blueprint. If we can just get that into the president, sit down with him, and make sense with his staff, then all these great ideas and plan, whatever we want, is ours. And see, now I've discovered something, folks, in the Constitution of the United States, where it singles out only one people in this country for special protection. And that's the people upon whose back this nation of immigrants is built. Black U.S. citizens, the descendants, the chattel slaves and their descendants. And there is law. There's no other people spoken to but us. And we have not used that law. And I've learned through the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which orders the President of the United States 3 times. His number one sole responsibility as a guardian chief of this nation is to protect the people upon whose back this nation is built. But instead, what we're looking at is 90% of the people living down there on Skid Row are black men followed by black women and their children. Nothing's being said. We're only 11%. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting my apologies. Folks, we are only 11% of the population of Los Angeles. We have over 40% of all homelessness.
So let me ask Mickey a question right here as you digest some of the things that Ted has said.
I'm sorry, y'all.
No. Sorry for what? No, this needs to be said, and obviously we need to do much about it.
But I don't want no one thinking I'm angry. I'm not angry.
I'm glad you ain't, but I'm pissed off. All right, I can't hide mine. You know, my uncle told me a long time ago, he said, if your shoes is too tight and you can't pull up on the lace, you ain't got to tell nobody. It's going to show on your face. So, you know, since me trying to act like I'm cool with any of that. Now, Mickey, what you're trying to do right now with the play and the musical and ultimately a film about Azusa Street, how does that factor into addressing the problem of homelessness here in Los Angeles?
Well, what we're going to do is take this musical and tour it all over the country, which will bring the Holy Spirit and the Azusa thing right face forward, right with the people. And funds from that will be given to the city, starting with Los Angeles, to remove some of this homeless problem. Along with the funds, also we are dealing with the educational areas, such as for the people to have a way of surviving past having a place to stay. They still need pride and jobs. So some teaching is also involved, financing some of that as well. So this could be an ongoing thing. And it will also, with the amount of people, Christians, those who love the Lord, if they a donation coming in, it's just $1. With that amount of people, some of this problem could be removed immediately. And that's all about. So the production and everything is all to raise funds and take people, and some of the people that said those and others that can do things and make it comfortable. And along with education, now you got to give them something else to do besides just a place to lay their body. They got to be able to feel their heart and their feelings as human beings got to be put back on this picture. For that, they need, some kind of a job, some kind of training, some kind of way to sustain themselves. Other than that, you'll have another ghetto, another homeless thing all over again. After 6 or 8 months, it'll keep repeating itself without bringing the rest of what's necessary. Education, information. Are you following me?
Oh, I do. And it leads to this question to Ted. Ted, there appears to be, from my vantage point, different stages of homelessness and different populations of homeless people. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for the listening audience?
The ones you see in the streets and on the encampments and sidewalks and so forth, that is the minority of what's really homeless. There are more people homeless sleeping in cars, in their parents' garages, and other people's friends' couches, and music studios. They're everywhere. If the city was to enforce the law of building and safety codes, people have built structures that they should not be living in. If they enforced it, there'd be that many more people in the streets. We have a real critical crisis. The mayor wasn't kidding, nor was the board of supervisors, nor was the state assembly. These people know what's going on, that we are in crisis mode, emergency mode. That not the fact that just we have this problem, but this could explode into a contagion.
A health hazard.
100 years ago, about this time, it was the end of the World War I, the war to end all wars. In the middle of that war, the Spanish flu was born. And that ended up in 3-4 years killing 50 to 100 million people worldwide. And they said it went fast because of transportation. That's 100 years ago. Can you imagine? So they're looking at that, and they're looking at potential civic breakdown, law and order. Because, see, the fact that the police cannot remove someone from a sidewalk for violating public and health and safety laws, that you cannot do that. That's lawlessness. Absolutely. You're out of control. It's chaos. So the population is immense. But the one I think that we can really reach first are the ones on the sidewalks. And there's a way of doing that. And Mickey's right. There's got to be these transitioning ideas, that preparing people for their future, preparing people to win, to believe they can overcome the circumstance.
So how do we deal psychologically with a person who, we've had this conversation on a number of occasions, and you woke me up to that. It's like, you're not going to be able to, in some instances, bring people back into what we call mainstream.
That's the madhouse. That's what mainstream is.
So how do we address that particular population? How do we, put them in situations where they have their dignity and a way to sustain themselves?
What the Lord showed me, I believe showed me, that we have to decentralize the urban centers. We have to find new land. We have to find new townships. We have to find new ways of life. And the homeless peoples, they no longer have root nor desire to go back into enslavement. The rat race. They don't want to go. Everybody knows that.
No, everybody don't know, because they're throwing money at other things, trying to change that tide and put people back into a situation that they ran from to begin with.
In their hearts, they know it. In their hearts, they know it. 95% of the American people hate the occupations. So these people know this, and they don't want to go back there. So we have a ready population to move out of Egypt now, see, and to create the promised land. And see, this goes back to, and I won't say that. I'll just say something about redemption and reconciliation, and we have access to these military bases and so forth in land.
Yeah.
So, Mickey, as we have this conversation, one of the things that I've enjoyed about being around our elder, because he's a little older than us. We
Yes,
ain't gonna get
sir.
into that.
Yes,
though.
sir.
We ain't
No,
gonna get into that. We ain't gonna get into that. But he's old enough for me to just be enriched every time that I just watch him process stuff. So
Yeah.
as we're having this conversation, what are some of the thoughts that are running through your mind, Mickey Stevenson?
I feel that we have enough spaces here in other cities that you could put up domes, put up places where the kids, you got to reach the young ones. Very important that you get to them as fast as possible. That they can have educational places, they can be in that area, have a school and other places where they can walk in and learn. And we got the space. We got places all over. We got desert. We got everything. It's just a matter of here's where you live. Here's the school that you go to. Here's the such and such. Here's the and they also have ways of now of growing food and all of that. I mean, there's all there at our fingertips if we just pull it together. Of course, they're not going to live downtown, but who cares? Let's move out in certain areas. There's no way you get in your car and not ride past land, just land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what if that some of those spaces we put up strictly for the people to live, and a school here and a place there where they learn and they can function and not be thrown back into this society that forced them out.
Mm.
See, Mickey's so right, and
You gotta hear me. All out in the depth. I mean, you can't ride past this country in any city without seeing just plain land sitting down.
That's true. That's true. What were you about to say, Ted?
No, that's very true, and this is why we need to launch a campaign to get to the President of the United States. I mean, this has got to be looked at as an emergency because there's so many ideas out there like that. People want to help, but to make it help, there's so much red tape and complication and politics. We can't do this by charity. Charity is a nice thing. Some of us do things out of charity, but we've got to do things by law. And the President of the United States is held by constitutional law to defend and fix this situation, especially when people bring him something and say, this is what we have, sir. So what we need to do is have a movement. Now, I've worked with some people trying to get different venues and avenues into his staff, even a low-level staff, to at least begin that conversation. That he's got to be brought into this thing. Otherwise, I mean, we'll be spending we're going to lose. We don't have that kind of time.
Mm.
Ted, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
I understand the president movement, but what about the governors of each city, each state, the governors and that group? They got to deal with it as well first, wouldn't you say? I agree with you, and it'd be wonderful if someone can talk with the governors association, someone can talk with the city associations, the county associations, and tell them, look, we have an idea, and we need your participation, and here's the idea. And whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's an idea that America can actually come together on, because everybody's pretty much saying this. I've been listening to people talking. I'm not the only one talking. I'm listening. And I'm hearing, wow, Lord, you're speaking to people. Now someone just got to organize it. And the person that's got that kind of power is the President of the United States. Like him or not, he's got that power. We can get him to do that. We can show him this is how we want it done. There's one more point. See, I understand why some of the leadership does not really seek me out. They know, and this book has really put in their face. They know what's up. They've been here. I've been around for 33 years. Okay, been saying the same thing, right? And it's hard when someone's coming and you know they're right, and if they don't have a body politic behind them, you're not gonna surrender that easy, man. That's hard. And on the other hand, I don't blame them. I would be the same way. So I would like the folks that there needs to be some sort of a body politic to come together around this actual move to take this idea to the president based on the Constitution.
On that note right there, because we got about 5 minutes left, and I want to kind of rally back around to how we unpack this information in a way that it breathes life into some solutions to these very just unbelievable problems that are associated with homelessness. And I think it's a multi-pronged attack because I know where you're coming from, and the fact that these young people that inspired this piece of work, and then for the mayor of Los Angeles to do the forward, and this is a massive piece of work right here. And when you got young, bright minds that are coming up with solutions in terms of creating livable spaces, then we need to take full advantage of that. And at the same time, work along that same track that you're going on all the way to the White House. But it starts right where we can cast this bucket down where we are.
Right.
And I think that's what Mickey is speaking to. And this is going to be something that I continue to deal with on my show because of where we live at. And in addition to that, there's $2 billion that have been appropriated in the state of California. Or is it the city of Los Angeles, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It was a bond measure in the city.
Yep.
There's $2 billion sitting around, and the people that are handling that money right now are clueless.
And they don't know what to do.
They're clueless, and it's our money, all right? And I think it's important that we begin to consolidate some of these ideas and see which one, breathes life first, And I want to thank you, Mickey, for sharing with us one of the elements of it, and that is dealing with the ecumenical community as a portion of the solution. And the fact that you have, made an impregnation that is important for us to be able to take advantage of and capitalize on, because there's some powerful voices right here in the city of Los Angeles that are a part of the Pentecostal community. And so when we get some of these minds together, and the faster, the better. If it happens in L.A., it'll happen everywhere else. Because we have the greatest problem. And it's not to say that other cities don't have a problem, because they do. But in L.A., you can't turn a corner without facing what we've done to humanity. It's in our face, And I think what you're doing is very important. And before we close, Mickey, if you would, please, for people that would want to get in touch with your initiative and be able to financially support what it is that you're putting together, how can they do so?
They could go to the internet and look up the Azusa Street Musical, and they will see where they can donate and become a part of it. And we'd appreciate that very much. And if they could send that information to their friends and just keep circulating it, I think it will grow into something phenomenal.
So what's your desired timeline for having that show up and ready to go?
I'm looking at about 3 months or more from now, at least. All right? In the meantime, we got a lot of things to do and a lot of people to reach.
Well, we're going to go to work on that, Mickey, because as I sat there along with Ted the other day at the event where you honored Bishop Blake and some other people from the Japanese community, it was interesting to see the impact that that event had on folks outside of the black culture and the enthusiasm that was generated. And I think at some point I'm going to bring you on the show and have you talk more extensively about the relationship between the Japanese community in and around that part of Los Angeles. Some people refer to it as East L.A., and it can become a blueprint for fixing some of these cultural divides that have torn this country apart, man. So,
that's great. That would be great. And they know how close we are.
Right.
Together for the same purpose. That's amazing.
It really is. So, Mickey, thank you, man, and I'm gonna be getting in touch with you probably tomorrow to do some, follow up to what did happen on Sunday. And let's go to work, brother. And thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Mickey. Bless you, brother.
All right. Okay, Ted. Love you guys.
Love you too.
Okay, we got about a minute and a half.
Yes,
Ted,
sir.
final thoughts.
Go to tedhayes.us.
Oh, you got it like that now.
Yes.
Okay.
That covers
seriously,
everything, because
seriously.
if you go to tedhayes.us, that'll lead you around to the Dome Village and to the New Frontiers, lead you to the 14th Amendment, the number one law that will cause us to survive as a people, which I'm teaching more about. But go there and you can learn more, and Facebook if you want. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk, you can call me.
Okay.
424-248-4219. I don't mind.
That number again.
424-248-4219. And we can talk,
Well, we're gonna continue to illuminate these kinds of issues here at Uncle Bobby's Country Corner. And as I close, I want to once again thank Sister O.G. Portis, man, for being such a gracious host and sharing this space with us. And until next week, always remember that I wanted to thank y'all for letting me be myself again. Ted, thank you for coming on the show, my brother.
Bobby. Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week.